We're live.
I'm just glad we don't do this show live on Wednesdays.
He did it.
I've expressed that I'm trying to do better with the intros, and dang, Josh loves throwing a wrench in that. Hey guys, welcome back to the LOOPcast. Today I'm joined by Erica and Josh. Always perpetually give me a hard time, but we have hearing season upon us. So both Fauci and Merrick Garland were dragged in front of Congress. We're going to be going over some of the highlights and what you need to know from that. Biden's handlers decided it was time to do something about the border, and they did something that is making just about nobody happy. So we're going to go over the details of that as well. And then if you use Miss Rachel for entertainment for your children, there's some things you should probably know about. So in order to help the show, though, we're live here, YouTube, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 Eastern. So if you want to join us, live chat, thank you all for joining that are in today. And it's always going to be available in podcast form. So leave us a review there, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, super helpful. And if you want to email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. So, Josh, I think you had something you wanted to talk about before we get into the stuff.
Okay, so speaking of YouTube, there's two things that, there's a lot of things that are weird about YouTube. But there's two things that really always just struck me. Number one, my kids would watch, it's not that they played video games.
This is an old
they
man
would watch,
I love it.
They would watch videos of people playing video games. When I was a kid, I didn't even like playing video games. It's way stupid.
Josh's perpetual old man take.
Watching videos of someone else playing a video game is the dumbest thing ever. And the second thing, which was also kind of stupid, was like all these unboxing videos. Ooh, let's see what gift I'm getting. They just start, make this big deal about opening something up. So I'm gonna mock them by unboxing something in front of you guys.
For us?
Oh, we're unboxing. I love
what could this be? What did I get in the mail? Ooh. It's kind of cellophane, so I can actually see the other side, but I'm gonna pretend like I don't know what this is. I love it. It's because it's live TV. Ooh, what could this possibly be?
What could it be?
This is like Blue's Clues-esque.
Maybe saw it. I don't know.
Josh got mail.
Josh got mail.
Okay. Here's my address in case you want to try to attack me. Some
You're
thank you letter. Right? Oh, Catholic Vote. You're a champion. That's right. Yours truly is a champion. I donate every month too. Thank you very much. My brand new copy of For God, Country, Insanity.
Whoops,
How Catholics can save America.
Yeah, we gotta make you large here. Let's get in nice and large on this. Show us the book here.
Yeah, there's
all right. Here we go, folks.
That's a proud man right there.
Now, I mean, we've done a few books now, but I gotta say, I kind of like this the editorial cartoon that we put on the front there. What do you think of that? It's kind of fun.
I love that cartoon.
It's kind of neat.
My kids love that cartoon. They're like, "That's funny, Mom. You wrote a funny book." I'm like, "No."
Now, what's unfortunate in this one is that it's printed. All the things are printed upside down, so you just have to flip it over to read it the right way. But that's I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh!
I'm trying to get Erica to spit out a copy.
Yeah, you just gave Erica a heart attack.
They scare you there a little bit. No, but this is good. This is good. This is good. I mean, great articles, essays from a lot of different Catholics. Obviously, Erica had so much that she worked on this with Brian on. Mark Hawk, talking about how he got arrested by the FBI. I mean, these are great. This is good. We got to check this out. Restoring the Woman's Vote by Carrie Gress.
Summer reading.
Josh, I think you might have a career in YouTube here. Maybe you should just go full unboxing.
Definitely.
I mean, I am kind of an influencer. I get it.
Low key.
If people want to mail me stuff, my address is.
No,
Josh. No, Josh.
Come
don't
on now,
dox yourself.
No, my kids are always right. Don't dox yourself, Dad. I'm like, what are you? Come on, man, bring it on.
Yeah.
Try all that kind of stuff where they intimidate people. Try that in a small town. Come on,
there you go. Okay, Jason Aldean. Okay, so but if we want to get into our hearing fun here, but first off, go grab the book. Link will be in the description. Go on Catholic Vote website to find that. So we had some hearings, and the first of them being Fauci's hearing. So the former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, and probably the most well-known doctor in America, also known as The Science, testified before Congress on Monday about the U.S. response to COVID-19 pandemic and the origins of the virus. So notable, it was Fauci's first public appearance since he retired from the NIAID role in August of 2022. So two things happened. One, there was a closed-door meeting, and then there was also a public testimony where Congress people could ask him questions or just go on about rhetoric. There's a lot of angry, hurt, the range of emotions going on here. It's the first time we've really been able to get him in front of the public to ask some of these things. And there's many notable things that came out. But Erica, I'm going to head to you first. What were the first impressions of this meeting?
I mean, yeah, Fauci is a consummate politician, and he's just a slippery fish. I don't know. Yeah, he's just a slippery fish. But from the closed door meetings we got, he actually, said the words out loud. The lab leak theory is no longer a conspiracy theory. So thank you, Dr. Fauci, who spent 2 years saying that people who said there was a lab leak were conspiracy theorists and dangerous. He spent 2 years beating people over the head with this. And now he's like, no, it's not. It's not a conspiracy theory at all. And he claims, and he went on to claim in the same meeting that he never actually called it a conspiracy theory. He never downplayed the lab leak theory. I never did it. And the White House, I mean, there were smear campaigns against this. People lost their jobs in, higher education,
businesses,
over
lives,
this.
etc.
People's businesses' lives were messed up. We have op-eds that he wrote in support. I mean, and this is all tied into the gain of function research that went down over there in the Wuhan lab that it turns out he was helping to fund. But again, at the time, 4 years ago, as people were starting to say, maybe there's something to a lab leak. Maybe this wasn't just like a bad bat that they ate in the marketplace in China. Then he's coming out and saying things like, that's dangerous, that's misinformation. And now he's completely turned it around. Why? Well, my guess is because he had funded that research himself via Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance with taxpayer money. He had reversed in his position. He had reversed an Obama era ban on the research because it was so dangerous. So Obama himself, who is no centrist, right?
Yeah, right.
He banned that research. It was too dangerous. His people had been like, nope, not going to do it. Fauci was all gung-ho about it. Gain of function research. Yeah, it's dangerous, but we're taking the risk because it's science. And all of this has come to bear. So this came out in the closed door meeting that Fauci is now perfectly fine with the lab leak theory. Could very well be true. It also came out in the public hearing that the 6-foot rule, and everyone remembers that. If you own a business and you're listening to this, you will remember how the 6-foot rule, the social distancing that was going to save so many lives, you had to basically reconfigure your entire office space. You had to reconfigure your restaurant, your place of work in order to honor the 6-foot rule, because this is how we were going to stop the spread. Fauci now is like, yeah, no, we made that up. Oh, not sure where that came from. 6-foot rule. Yeah. And all of this, again,
direct
I
quote,
love
not
this.
sure where that came from.
Not sure where that came from. It kind of came up. And then so Representative Joyce, God bless him, in the public hearing, he comes back at Fauci. He says, so once you learned more about the 6-foot rule, did you feel any indication to go back to the CDC? Because Fauci's like, oh, it was the CDC's rule. It wasn't me. It was them. It was CDC. So Joyce is like, well, you were the science, right? Did you feel like maybe you should go back to the CDC or publicly say this is not based on science? Let's get rid of the 6-foot rule that is destroying businesses and schools and lives. And it crippled us, right? Students had to stay home. And Fauci's just like, it was the CDC decision. I mean, for a guy who touts himself as I am the science, to just be like, no, I couldn't have done anything about it. It's just, it was maddening. And the thing that to me that was most maddening is that nothing's going to happen to this guy. He's not going to go to jail. He's not even going to be fined. He's retired. He's made his millions and billions. And it's great that we're having these things come out so that they're said in public. But as far as any real, talk about reparations. These are reparations I could get on board with, right? That's not going to happen as a result of these hearings. So I don't know. Maybe Josh has a better view of great things will happen now that Fauci has had to admit the 6-foot rule was fake.
But you're right. I mean, he's political. I mean, he's been political his entire life. I mean, even you think, oh, here's a guy who's Catholic, Jesuit educated. Maybe he could bring to light faith and reason, and no, even during the AIDS stuff, he would play politics with all that stuff. And, he knew which way the wind was blowing. And so he never, he just whatever you want to do. Again, the science, I love it. The incantations, the science.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're right. A conspiracy theory. It would be one thing if this whole virus had a major outbreak, maybe several hundred miles from a coronavirus lab in China. But the coronavirus breakout happened in the city that happens to have a coronavirus lab. Gee, maybe just maybe that's what's going on here. No, it was like some sort of bat at the market. Yeah, okay, buddy. I mean,
yeah, which in hindsight, looking at that, it has to just be the most ridiculous suggestion of all time. Some people have said they want to hear more angry populists, Tom, and I'm happy to provide in this situation. So I really
don't enable him, people. Here he comes.
Here I come. I really did the deep dive. So the big question is, and this is what some of the most successful politicians currently just will bald-faced lie shamelessly to your face. That's nothing new. Fauci's amidst the class of people that do this. Look at people like Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi. They'll never admit that they're wrong, ever, to the point. And even there's a lot of things that Trump will never admit that he did wrong. So this is just par for the course for politicians. But then I try to look at, why? What is the incentive for him to lie about trying to spike the origins of COVID? Because, and as Erica brought out, he was a key instrumental player in using taxpayer funding through the EcoHealth Alliance to fund this kind of dangerous research. He knew it was dangerous. He did it anyway. And he is actually personally responsible for the trillions of dollars in damage that have followed through destroying the American dollar through inflation, ruining American businesses that will never open again, destroying trust between Americans in the medical community. So there's really heavy penalties for him personally. And as someone obsessed with his ego and legacy, it's a huge problem. And so therefore, we found out through a FOIA request, hilariously, that he's basically blaming this all on some colleague, Dr. Morans, because he openly bragged about developing a strategy for evading FOIA requests through government emails. So didn't do a very good job, but these emails can be found linked to Dr. Fauci that he was in the CC. So he said he was deleting emails between them and the EcoHealth Alliance, which is illegal, using private emails to do so, think Hillary Clinton, also illegal, and then intentionally using misspelled names and titles to evade FOIA searches, but we found out about all this through FOIA. So basically, he's kind of blamed this smear campaign against the origins theory on this colleague of his to somehow, avoid responsibility. But really, I think he needs to do so to protect his ego. He's completely maniacal. He's never going to apologize. They even asked him, like, would you, in hindsight, would you have closed churches? Would you have closed schools? Is there any science behind masking children under 5? The vaccine for children, even vaccine efficacy, which he is saying, oh, no vaccine's 100% effective, even though
right.
What was the messaging over the 2020 to 2023 was, hey, you're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your reputation. You're not going to be allowed in society if you do not get this thing. It's perfectly effective. It's going to stop you from getting it. That turned out to be a lie. It's going to stop you from spreading it. That turned out to be a lie. It's completely safe. That turned out to be a lie. So it's just lying and lying and lying and lying. We get him in front of Congress. What's this going to do? If anything, hopefully change the way that we interact with our public health officials. More accountability is definitely needed. And at least to just destroy this guy's reputation, because we cannot put blind trust in these slimy bureaucrats to make decisions. Someone even asked, hey, did you ever treat a COVID patient yourself? The answer was no. He was not one of the healthcare people in the field. There was a congressman who was actually a doctor treating COVID patients who basically lost his entire reputation, was attacked, smeared by this guy. So hopefully just a good lesson in, figuring out who we need to trust here. And the answer is not top level bureaucrats that make millions of dollars. Him and other doctors at the NIAID made millions of dollars in royalties off of their relationship with the vaccines, with the companies. It's disgusting. It's disgusting and immoral. Yeah. Hopefully this just shows to the American public, yeah, it's bad.
Right.
I'm here for
and
that.
They don't even care that the American people are less interested in science and more cautious about government mandates and not trusting of our public officials because they were lying to us for so long. You know what I mean? And it's just like, as you're saying, downplaying the adverse effects of how much it crippled businesses and people lost their jobs, people couldn't work and all this kind of stuff. And they just kind of blew it aside like it was no big deal. I mean, let's not forget, they wanted to use the Department of Labor to force everyone in practically in the country to get the vaccine.
Yep.
And if it weren't for courageous people, I mean, like I think of Judge Catherine Mizell. She was the federal judge who basically said, "Go pound sand" to the FAA on that, forcing us to wear masks on airplanes, because that decision was the decision that I think was just, it kind of popped the balloon, and we're like, give me a break with this farce, because the technocratic state was still trying to keep us wearing masks everywhere. Gotta wear a mask at the post office.
And he admitted in this hearing that masks are not effective, that it was
exactly. And so thankfully somebody said, the emperor's wearing no clothes. This is garbage. Shove it. And, there's no authority to do this. And that was really the time when we finally, that's when the scale started to come off and we started to move beyond this. And there's some of us, honestly, I was one of these, who really thought that Biden and the Democrats were pushing all this stuff with the masks and hyper-regulation, stuff like that, in order to win the election. And then once Biden was sworn into office, like within 20 or 30 days, they would start to ease restrictions and move on from it. And I thought, okay, this is going to be over. And because I thought that was just for them they did this all as a ploy to win. And then they say, oh, things are getting better. The vaccine's out now. And that they kept with these regulations, that they kept trying to push us towards vaccines. They kept trying to make us wear masks and social distances and all this garbage.
Mm-hmm. And they kept schools closed. Right.
Yeah,
and they
kept
schools closed.
For years.
I think it could have been twofold. Right. To your point, Josh, I think it could have been
wanted
twofold
the
because
power. It wasn't just that they wanted to win the election.
Well, those regulations, I think 100% aided Biden winning in 2020. I think it was a voter suppression effort to have the 6-foot rule in place to begin with. And a lot of those regulations were actually put in place far beyond this novel virus. So there was a lot going on there. But then also, I think when you're in bed with a lot of these big pharmaceutical companies, they needed their checks. And so you're talking about things like the American Rescue Plan. Years after, you needed to keep the facade of the fact that this is somehow necessary for the health of the American people. And we see now how many thousands of vaccines just expiring on shelves right now that we paid for with taxpayer dollars because they needed that momentum to pass such insane inflationary measures to get money to the big pharmaceutical companies. They were in too deep. They needed it.
Right.
And so they paid their friends, and there's fraud with all the PPP loans, and they punished their enemies.
But if we were a just country, though, Tony Fauci would be in handcuffs, and he'd be testifying in his orange jumpsuit.
100%. Yeah. Speaking of people that probably belong in an orange jumpsuit, so we have the Merrick Garland hearing coming next. And so another contentious issue. So the Department of Justice is basically on the hot seat for election interference when we're talking about the Trump stuff. And we're not even talking about the FBI spying on Catholic churches, which we still have beef on that, and they've still stonewalled us on quite a bit of that. But Jim Jordan's Committee on Weaponization of the Government called Merrick Garland to testify on all the various hot-button issues, including Trump. And one thing that really stuck out to me was a line of questioning from Matt Gaetz, who he was saying that, man, this is sure suspicious that the third highest person in the Department of Justice had kind of a downstream career trajectory, popped back up suddenly in Manhattan, and is now going after Trump. And he's like, oh, well, I had nothing to do with that. I didn't send him anywhere. And so he said, okay, great.
So what?
One way that could really clear up this confusion, could you just give us the correspondence between the Department of Justice and the Alvin Bragg and the Manhattan DA department? He's
in
like, no,
Georgia, Fannie Willis.
I'm not going to do that. And so, clearly, it'd be so easy to clear this up. But of course, there's something here. It doesn't make any sense. So he got grilled big time.
Yeah, Garland definitely got grilled, and it didn't come across as great. Of course, this was only one of the things too. Another issue is that Garland is still not releasing the interview recordings from when, if you remember way back, we covered this when Biden was interviewed by her for, about oh my gosh, what was he being interviewed for? I lost my notes again.
It was over the documents indictment. So
that's right.
Over documents in his Corvette in his garage.
In his Corvette in the garage, which is my kid's favorite story. Yeah, Biden. And so he did the interview with special counsel John Hur. And from the transcript, which we have, you can see the sort of mental impairment that's affecting the president. And so Jim Jordan calls for the recording because he's like, guys, we should know what this conversation really sounded like. And Garland's refusing to release the interview recordings. He says it's inappropriate. It's not necessary. There was, however, I don't think we even need those recordings at this point. Did you guys see the Time magazine interview? I was just about to bring this up.
It was so bad.
Oh my goodness. I read the whole transcript.
I saw the cover.
Oh, it was bad.
So if you read the transcript, this Time magazine interview with Biden, it just went down. It's mostly on his foreign policy. it's frightening. It is word salad time. I mean, it makes Kamala Harris look like a towering intellectual. The man is so far gone. I'm like, I don't know, Jim. I don't think it's even worth asking Garland to prove mental impairment by releasing recordings. Just read the transcript from Time. Biden, there's so much like inaudible mumbling. And she's repeating words like there. And it's like, what are we talking about? And then Biden actually at one point challenges the journalist to like a fist fight. The journalist asks him, he's like, do you think you'll be well enough at 85 years old to run the country and deal with foreign policy with China? And Biden's like, I'm sitting here, aren't I? I can take you. You're like, well, that was awkward.
All right.
But anyway.
Yeah, he's got that whole punkish, like, I'm a fighting Irish kind of guy. Like, like,
but
give me
he's
a break.
80 and he's
oh
shriveled
my
and
gosh. Speaking of that
fighting
debate
Irish
we got from KS, looking forward to that debate between him and Trump is going to be.
Well, that's actually Ben Shapiro had a good comment about that. He said, anytime Biden tries to speak, Trump should just go, hey, why don't you keep talking? Just keep talking, Joe, and see if he can get through 3 or 4 more sentences. I mean, just
I was shocked Time actually put the full transcript out. I bet there's some wrists getting slapped over that.
But back to the hearing, what they were trying to get with Robert Hur is the reason Merrick Garland is not releasing this to the committee is he's saying they're going to use it for political persecution. They're not actually interested in the truth of his mental state, the mental state of the president, the leader of the free world. They're not interested in that. They just want to use it to attack him on an election year. And ironically, Robert Hur, the reason why he did
both
not...
things can be true. Both things can be true.
True, but Josh, ironically, the reason that Robert Hur did not end up deciding to prosecute him for these crimes is because he described him as a feeble old man. It was his mental state itself was the reason why they didn't prosecute. So of course this is interesting to...
It's relevant.
The American people. What?
The American people deserve to know, right?
That's crazy.
The left always loves to say, the American people deserve to know. The left always loves to say that.
I think they know.
We want transparency.
And someone, I saw a funny headline about the Time interview was like, oh man, Biden's mental state is really slipping behind closed doors. It's like, I think we're all kind of noticing, like in the open doors as well. Like it's not hard to see.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. It's scary. I mean, in the Time interview too, they were trying to get his grasp on international conflicts. And he just showed zero understanding of the on the ground situation of what's happening in places like Ukraine, what's happening in places like Israel, saying he's going to run again at his age, trying to fight the reporter. Like these are real world consequences coming because Democrats are propping up someone that clearly has a form of dementia.
Yeah.
And maybe that makes a difference, people. Maybe that's why he had such a debacle in leaving Afghanistan and causing so many problems for our troops and leaving, millions of dollars of weaponry for the Taliban to scoop up. I mean, like this matters, people. I mean, yes, we can talk about policy in addition to the fact that he's a feeble old man who can't do anything. Yes, we can certainly talk about policy because on policy, Joe Biden is absolutely wretched, wanting to push sex changes on 7-year-olds and make us all pay for abortions. I mean, the guy is absolutely crazy. And, also leaving the border wide open. Yeah. But, I mean, it's worth talking about like what was it? Thomas Jefferson was 33 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Which brings us to Josh's favorite bill that he would enact if he were on the Hill: term limits based on age. Term limits.
Age maximum age. Yeah,
maximum age to serve. I'm here
80
for
is
it.
enough.
You've convinced me.
Yeah, it's
80 is more than enough.
Speaking of the border, so Biden, I don't know if you can even say it's him. His handlers decided it was time to finally do something about the border because poll numbers are probably too low. So just getting into some of the specifics of it. This reveals an obvious logical fallacy that he said for probably the last year, I can't do anything about the border. We need Congress to act. And yet here he is doing something about the border with an executive order. So that is clearly a contradiction. But the order itself basically is reinstating a asylum ban for certain situations. So people entering the country illegally now will be basically deported on site. And they said it's going to be enacted within hours, if not a day, because it's if we get to this threshold, 2,500 a day coming across, Above that,
the numbers
this is going to be put. Go ahead.
I think the numbers that matter more, Tom, though, is probably poll numbers.
Yeah, exactly. But what's funny about it was like, well, if we reach this 2,500 level and get above that, this is going to be in place. We've been above the 2,500 level for years now. So this isn't like, oh man, if it gets really bad, we're going to do this. Like, this is going to be enacted. Probably it already has been enacted since he announced it yesterday. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny too, because this is also after he spent the first year of his presidency gloating about reversing Trump-era policies like Remain in Mexico, Title 42, and bragging about being the one to do that. And now he's essentially saying he's now doing exactly what Trump did. So not making Republicans happy, obviously, because it's too little too late, and not making Democrats happy either, because he's now doing what Trump did. So it's like,
you're being Trump.
What are we doing?
Well, it's not inhumane if a Democrat does it. You have to remember that.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's kind of a wedge issue, right? It's like
100%.
like the Israel-Gaza war, right? That's ongoing right now, where you have this extreme element of the Democratic Party that's totally pro-Gaza and hates Biden. They call him Genocide Joe, right? Because he's being soft on Israel, quote unquote. And then you have the immigration issue here, where now you have the far left of the Democratic Party saying he's just doing what Trump did, which is, not what we elected him to do. So he's just caught the Democratic Party is eating itself alive in this way.
Oh, you hate to see that.
I know. I mean, it's a little satisfaction
you look at this
feeling, but
you got conservatives, you got moderates, you got independents. They all pretty much like, okay, I mean, Israel has the right to defend itself. I mean, sure, fine, whatever. So you talk about these wedge issues. It's really just a debate between the communists and the socialists in the Democratic Party, and they're fighting a little food fight there. But the vast majority, the other 80% of Americans, like, yeah, no, dude, there's not really. We should have a secure border. What are you talking about?
So my favorite line from the press conference announcing this: to protect America as a land that welcomes immigrants, we must first secure the border and secure it now.
It's not even securing the border. It's
but you know who else used that kind of language? Donald J. Trump. 2016 2020. Trump. Yeah. I mean, I was even going back through. He made he addressed the nation about border security 5 years ago, and the exact same language was used. And I don't know now. It's funny. He was saying all of this before we had 81 million gotaways, illegal immigrants at our border. This was like when it was still kind of an issue, but clearly not the issue that it's become now. And to hear Trump, I forgot how good Trump was on the border, which might sound dumb because he's obviously known for building the wall, but there's kind of that infamous, it's turned into a meme and stuff. It's him sitting down with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, and they're kind of arguing back and forth. It's clearly contentious. And it was actually over a spending package that would send funding to ICE, send funding to the border to build the wall, and Democrats were pitching a fit over it. And he basically was like, look, if the government shuts down, blame me. Like, I'm happy to be blamed for trying to put Americans first, trying to secure our border. And it ended up working. Like, he ended up being able to get that pushed through. And just to see such blatant disregard, if anything, intentionally exacerbating the problem that Trump was solving, I don't know, just despite Trump being one thought, or to actually have end goals with this, as it looks like Democrats do in turning illegal immigrants into full-on citizens through amnesty. It's really crazy.
Which Chuck Schumer just said is their intention. We intend to turn all of the people who are here into legal citizens. And the other thing about this is
the point of a system is what it does, right?
Exactly. Right back to that. And I think too, the other thing about this is he's like cosplaying Trump, right? Because it's going to be successful. But if you actually read the language in here, it is so riddled with these ridiculous loopholes. Like there are exceptions for the asylum seekers. And one of them is a feeling of fear that may be, quote, nonverbal. So someone might come and seek asylum under this, and they're like, well, we're at an average of 2,600, so you can't come in today. And they might look at you and, feel fearful, and you think that they look fearful. And so you let them in anyway. There's so many loopholes for activist groups to come in and exploit this, that it's like not even being an effective Trump executive order.
I'm just trying. I guess what I'm trying to figure out, though. Diana, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I'm not dumb. I'm done. I'm not dumb either. Whoa, I need more coffee. You
Watch
go
the
ahead, Josh.
transcript.
I'm gonna drink some of this.
Okay. No, it's just like, month after month of having hundreds of thousands of people come through our border illegally. Why suddenly does he want to put an executive order to stop the illegal immigration? It's almost like there's an election here in 4 or 5 months from now.
Makes you think.
Makes you think.
It's a stumper. I'll figure it out.
I think it does just point to how damaging this has been messaging wise for his reelection campaign. Immigration for sure feels like the number one issue. Like if you're going, even we were talking about this internally. Saw that someone at National Catholic Register did a interview with Trump Catholics, basically Catholics that support Trump.
That's
the reporter. This is the National Catholic Reporter.
Not the Register, the reporter. I thought it said reporter. I can never say the right one. But anyway, I was impressed. It felt like a very as fair as you're probably going to get from that outfit. And really, it all came back to, in a lot of them, like our current situation with immigration is bad. And I see, it annoys me when you get kind of economists, like this really annoys me about libertarians that are like, oh, like open borders are good for the economy. Like it's going to help people bring down prices and yada, yada, yada. And I just hear all these NGOs and big thinkers be like, yeah, it's great for the economy. Just completely disregarding the reality that we live in a country, and in order to serve that country's interests, the people in the country, you need to protect the borders and sovereignty of said country for the people. Like we're not just a part of this big global friend group where people just flow in and out, and it's just we're all just trying to get the global GDP up and yada yada. It's better for everyone. It's like, no, I want it to be better for Americans, and even people that get here legally as immigrants are the ones most mad about immigration because they had to go through the long way. And they are the ones severely impacted by people flowing across and bringing down their own wages, taking opportunities from them. Like we need to think about the Americans that are here. There's nothing inherently non-Christian about that take. And yet it's been spun into, oh my gosh, you're a white supremacist. La, 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 la. Even they're saying now that people who aren't white can be white supremacists, which knows you're losing on that issue if you have to make that statement. I've actually seen headlines saying that. So yeah. It's I think it just speaks to how damaging and how mishandled Democrats and Biden have mishandled this issue. Immigration.
Well, I just think that they prey on guilt. I mean, like a lot of us, have, we're born into a country, and it's a very wealthy a country for many of us, and, we hear stories of our grandparents having survived the Great, Depression, and we're like, but we've had a lot of prosperity, since 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, the 70s were tough, okay, but for the most part, you're talking about decades of prosperity, and it's almost like people feel guilty, like they won somehow life's lottery, and how can they say no to someone who's super poor and wants to come into our country? And I'm like, look, we have been generous. We've had since 1965 our immigration law. That was Ted Kennedy's thing, by the way. He's not stupid. He knew what he was doing. 1 million new immigrants every year. So we have been very generous. That's 1 million a year for 60-some years. Like that's a lot. And the point is, we still get more and more and more because we have a wide open border, and we're talking about adding millions more illegally. And that I just find it so bizarre. People are like, how could you object to this? What do you mean, object to people breaking the law? I mean, like an orderly process for migration so that we'd allow, so many hundreds of thousands in every year. We know where they live. And if there's any problems, we kick them out. But like having millions pour in through a border, and like, I always say, it's just like Las Vegas. Like the whole point of Las Vegas, their tourism ads for the last 20 years, like, hey, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Like, in other words, do whatever you want, be a little kind of naughty or reckless. No one's going to know. No one's going to see. And then just go back home. It'll be as if it's not, no big deal. But when you're in a foreign land, that's what the idea behind Vegas is. No one knows who you are. Well, that's the problem with having someone who's here illegally. They feel like they can do whatever they want to. Like,
well, there's no accountability. Yeah.
There's no accountability.
Right. They live in this like shadow world that's parallel. It's parallel to the legal system. And that's not kind to them. And it is not good stewardship of our prosperity. And again, like the people, they try to guilt trip you and be like, well, we're so fortunate. Shouldn't we share this with the whole world? If we share it with the whole world, we will no longer have anything to share. And part of this like idea of stewardship of the great gift that America has been is to preserve that. And what preserves people, it's sharing a moral system, it's sharing a religious system, it's sharing a rule of law. Oh wait, that just went out the door with last week's verdict. But
yeah, I thought we like criminals now.
I thought we liked that. Like, yeah. So the whole guilt tripping thing is
so if I may
ignore it. If people are doing that to you, ignore it.
If I may, on guilt tripping, because I do want to set aside a decent amount of time to talk about this. So everyone needs to find ways to entertain their kids. I have a young child. I know that finding good programming can be tough, and I know there's a lot of Miss Rachel fans out there, okay? So we've gone through the full thing, and speaking of that Christian guilt, she's actually kind of using that. So let's watch the video, we'll watch the response, and then we'll talk. Up top, if you need a good rec, Little Bear, pretty sick, great cartoon. If you want to avoid all of this,
go vintage, people.
Go vintage, go DVD. Don't get on YouTube. But yeah, let's check out what Miss Rachel's in the news for sending out a pride message, and she's a very popular YouTuber for young children. And I mean, the numbers she does are just insane. We're talking like hundreds of millions of views. So yeah, let's watch that video that everyone is all up in arms about.
Families and friends, this month and every month I celebrate you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're exactly who you are. To those who are going to comment they can't watch the show anymore because of the support, no worries and much love your way. God bless. I am not chasing fame or views. I'm standing strong in love.
Okay, so I think we missed that first part. Yeah, happy Pride to all of our wonderful families and friends. And then there was obvious backlash to this because she does a program targeted to children, and inherent to Pride is sexuality. So alarm bells went off.
Not just that, but sodomy. I mean,
yeah,
right.
Not just
deviant forms of sexuality.
So a reasonable,
and of course she has this
reasonable backlash. Okay, so but I think what's interesting about it is more interesting is her response to the backlash. So if we can get the response video played. There we go.
It's also one reason why I love every neighbor. In Matthew 22, a religious teacher asked Jesus, what's the most important commandment? And Jesus says to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. There's no greater commandments than these. I believe it's mentioned 8 times, love your neighbor. So yes, everyone belongs, everyone's welcome, everyone is treated with empathy and respect. It doesn't say love every neighbor except. There are so many reasons I stand strong in love. I stand with everyone. That's who I am. And the love back and the God bless if you disagree is genuine.
So, pretty classic defense of doing what you want by saying love your neighbor.
Yeah, Father James Martin would be proud.
Well, pride.
And he knows about pride.
Right.
No, I mean, it's like this, and these, I mean, again, it's not even having a real discussion. It's all these, slogans, love is love. And it reminded me of the meme I saw, someone showing somebody grabbing a soup ladle and dipping it into the toilet. Water is water. It's all the same. Just drink it up. Let's go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's so cloying to just listen to her say, like, and if you disagree with me, I love you back. And you're like, no, you don't. Because again, this empty, weaponization, I'm going to say it again, of the word love, it's so hollow. And it's not the kind of love that is going to hold you up when you are challenged, when you are, when you're struggling in life, when you suffer a tragedy. That's all like, well, everyone's welcome. It's not the kind of love that God has sent into the world in his son, Jesus Christ, to be crucified and to die for our sins. And to say things like, unless you eat my flesh, you have no life within you. Her interpretation of Matthew 22 is empty.
Well,
love your neighbor. It is love your neighbor as yourself. and love God. That is, how do we know that we have the love of God in us? It says right in the scriptures, we keep his commandments. And she's basically just saying, I'm going to blow all the commandments out of the water because that's love. And you're like, it's the opposite of love. That's so Orwellian. It's war is peace, love is love. Just no believing Christian or Catholic should countenance this. And I'm sorry if Ms. Rachel, excuse me, I misspelled her name. It's not Miss, it's Ms.
I think she's married, but
Ms. She is married, so that's why it's Ms., which is a fake name. But Ms. Rachel, you got to delete her, guys. Do not add to her view.
Can we get biblical for a second? I know Erica did a little bit.
Let's get biblical.
Let's throw up that thread. This is a phenomenal threat response on Twitter by this guy Skeletor. Shout out at the Muppet Master. But he went into the actual Matthew 20:22, verse 39 she did it without 37 and 38. So let's read the section. It's, teacher, what is the great commandment in the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. People often, when they're cherry picking the Bible, will not put in that first part as someone secular just looking for an answer, basically, or maybe just a very surface level interpretation of the Bible, is to take that second and then use it basically to justify all kinds of sin. It's one of the greatest excuses I see for sin, cowardice, and enablement in our current era. But in order to love God, to your point, Erica, you need to know God and you need to understand what he commands of us. And there's so many errors here. I mean, you can't just use, hey, love your neighbor, so therefore let's go put sex stuff in front of kids, or, hey, let's allow a healthy child to chop off their breasts. That's not love at all. Right. And there's no attempt to even understand what God commands of us. So it's kind of a classic tell, like someone is using this as a bludgeon line to make you feel bad and back off and not rightfully criticize them and the ideas that they're promoting. And I think to add to this whole thread, and Matt Walsh did a great job in this. Some of you who do watch Miss Rachel are aware she's had on this person who's very gender confused, kind of a sideshow, come on and do music, Jules. And funny, I even saw a lot of people in the comments saying, hey, when Jules comes on, I skip it because it scares my kids, or I don't want them to be confused, which is totally reasonable. But this person, Jules, was singing at a Pride event in Chicago. So this is part of the problem of what is being promoted here. Queer Fam Pride Jam, okay, advertised as family friendly. And of course, if anyone's been following the Pride movement over the past couple years especially, these are not family friendly in slightest. And we're showing it a little bit here. If you want to scroll down, Jessica, we had a man dressed as a woman in skin tight leopard, accepting tips from kids. There's videos of them teaching how to dance, little boys how to dance in a very effeminate drag queen way. It's disgusting. It's not child friendly. There's clearly an odd satisfaction of adults being sexual in front of children going on here. And this is someone who Miss Rachel said on the show is actually performing at and embracing. And then there's also the element she's invited the big time hustler, Dylan Mulvaney, on the show to sing a kid to littles. So this isn't like a one-off, oh, I said this thing, I'm trying to be like Jesus, I'm trying to whatever. She's embodied the philosophy that is behind something that's completely anathema to Christianity, Christian understanding of self, Christian understanding of how we should treat children. So it's much broader than just this one moment, which definitely says to me, hey, we need to take a lot of pause in who we're putting in front of our children, especially if you're pressing play and going away. She might be the nicest person ever, but I would not let that sneak into what my child consumes.
Yeah, I wouldn't, say, well, I can sort her videos, because you really don't know what the next video is going to have in it. And eventually your kids, I've found this, my kids are so much smarter at technology than I am at a much younger age than I ever would have anticipated. And I mean, we live in a pretty low tech home compared to some others. And don't put too much trust in your ability as a parent to curtail this. I would just be like, we need to cut this out root and branch. Like, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. And I'm sounding kind of MAGA extremist, but the extremists are these guys on these videos. You watch the videos that Matt Walsh dug up with this Jules guy and what he's part of. They are teaching little boys like to gyrate and shake their booty in front of other people. And sitting in the audience are all these grown men and women who what I would assume are the parents and the caretakers of these little boys. And they're applauding and they're laughing and they're like, this is so fun. This is classic. Like the other scripture verse that we don't hear a lot from the Pride community is, it is better for you if you had a millstone tied around your neck than if you do stuff like this to little kids. And that is absolutely, like, they are after the children because they know that adults of common sense are harder to get at, right? Adults who have common sense are going to see something like genital mutilation of children or mastectomies on 12-year-old girls and be like, ew, that is wrong. But little kids are impressionable, and vulnerable little kids who have been wounded in their lives, their dad's gone, their mom, they're especially impressionable. And just, woe to these people who are taking advantage of that to suck them in. And it is at root a spiritual struggle. It is demonic. And I think we have this clip from an Ohio Pride event, Mercer County, Ohio. The good name of Mercer has been sullied. I don't know if we can pull that up, Jessica, but we've got this. This is absolutely chilling, but this is what's happening all over the country. This drag queen
I
here.
will change your little town. Your own children will. Your children will see us. Your children will love us. And your children will join us.
Yeah, this is obviously a disturbed individual. Like, that is absolutely chilling. But look at the people standing behind him who are like, yeah, woohoo. And it's going on.
Do you see, though, this guy, I think it was in Spain or Mexico, I can't remember. I think it was in Spain. He posted a picture of him holding his, 3-month-old baby and just talking about, this is what true happiness and pride is about, like having children, right? Mm-hmm. And so some gay comic made a comment, a very nasty, profane comment about how that child someday is going to do, horrible gay sex stuff.
Yep.
This kid's 3 months old. So this dad, goes to where this comic is holding a stand-up thing and just slaps him right in the face.
Yeah.
And like security, and then security came up and the security's like, maybe we'll just sit this one out, Because in other words, this guy deserved it. Like, in other words, I thought that was pretty all right, very good, class act. But I just want to go back just for 1 second about this. I absolutely drives me so insane when people try to weaponize Christianity, people who really, I do not believe, actually love Jesus, but they're like, you seem to love Jesus, so let me take the popular phrases that Jesus said and turn them as if they're a weapon against you. Love your neighbor. For the most part, when someone's involved in crazy, sexuality stuff, like, you're men having sex with men, like, I'd rather just not hear about it, okay? I'm not going to go in your face and say, oh, you're the biggest sinner in the world. It's like, you know what? Out of respect, I'm just going to mostly leave you alone. But they're saying, no, love your neighbor. So like, I should give them a hug and love is love and love them as they are. And it's like, no, Jesus does not tell us to love people who they are. I mean, like, let's honestly, if you found out like, your uncle or something like that said, oh, I'm not going to get married. I just have this sex doll and that's who I'm going to have sex with all the time. And you're like, ooh, gross. What? No, gross. Like, dude, that's weird. Like, you tell him because you love him. Like, that's not normal behavior. But we've, as a society, just accepted that men having sex with men is normal and women having sex with women is normal. But it's not natural. And again, when we come to the trans stuff, that's taking it up a whole nother notch. When we see people who have all these scars on their wrists because they cut themselves, they literally cut themselves, the cutters, right? And you see, what the heck is going on with that? Why would they mutilate their body like this? They're doing it because they feel so numb and they want to feeling pain makes them feel alive. And you're like, my goodness, your heart goes out for them. Mm-hmm. But under the love is love, you should be like, hey, love them however they are. Accept them as they are. And you're like, no way.
Yeah,
get that person help.
Yeah.
You want to get that person help because there's something going on. It's not so much that it's wrong right here where they're cutting themselves. It's between the ears, something in their brain. You're like, This person needs help. And the same thing with someone who'd want to chop off their genitalia. You're like, bro, I love you so much. I don't want you to hurt yourself. Instead of accepting their warped idea of reality.
Yeah, and one step beyond that, not only do they need help from loving adults, they shouldn't be near children teaching children to do the same thing that they're crazy
Shouldn't be
about.
anywhere
right?
near children.
Yeah.
Right.
Anywhere.
Until they have been healed by the love of Jesus Christ and they are sound and whole, you keep them away from children. It's that simple.
Right.
But we made that point, though. We at Catholic Vote said, hey, some of these things, some of these books are so nasty, they should not be near children at all. And they're targeted for children. So we put out a warning on Twitter telling, folks, don't have these books. Get them away. That's the whole purpose of the Hide the Pride. Get these books. You see them in the library. They're in the kids section. Gobble them all up and check these books out so that other kids aren't exposed to them, especially during the month of June. They're going to be pounding it with people on this. So, we said it's no longer safe to let our children explore the shelves of public libraries. Librarians across America are pushing graphic LGBTQ books into our children's hands, not just during Pride Month, especially though, throughout the year. Take a stand against this. And so we put this out there and are warning parents. And I've had people sending me photos of bookshelves that are now empty, that they've checked out all the books. God bless them. That's awesome stuff. But apparently somebody in Hollywood didn't like what we said. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
Now, here's a funny thing. My kids love watching Chopped. It's their favorite show. It really is. They love the show. And I actually don't mind it so much because it's not so many other shows you watch and they push the rainbow stuff on you. I know the host. I know the host is, gay himself, but it's like, for the most part, they make a reference here or there. And I'm just like, la, 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 la. And then they go on to the show because it's not about, sex. It's about cooking, thankfully.
Imagine that.
And but
Mostly.
Ted Allen, the host of the show, he got onto Twitter. He was not happy with Catholic Vote at all for sending out this warning. He said, "This is such massive baloney." That's what he said. He said, "Don't fear books. Fear people who want to take away your books." So, hey, you know what? My kids suddenly think I'm a star. Like, oh my gosh, Dad. The host of Chop
he knows who you are.
He's in fear of you, Dad. He's totally in fear. I thought that was pretty crazy. Hey, come on, man.
I just sent that to the
Slack. Fear people
yesterday.
who don't want to shove porno books on kids. Yeah, okay.
I'm like the Chopped guy is coming after us on Twitter. Or actually, it was the Queer Eye guy because he was also on Queer Eye, which
Chopped. Okay, keep those knives are for vegetables, not for kids' genitalia. No. Stay away.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Oh man,
he went there. Come
on,
people.
Brother.
Yeah, that's great.
And then classic swipe.
Glad you're a friend of the program, Ted.
Yeah. What's up, Chopped? Yeah, and this deserves a longer discussion, but we kind of talked a little bit off air. I think, if anything, this is just an encouragement to have very candid, honest conversations with your children about sex, sexuality, the human person, theology of the body, yada, yada, yada. And there's always a debate over like age appropriateness. And unfortunately, I think it's always good to try to remove as much taboo as possible at as early an age as possible. So just things like using anatomically correct words for genitalia, being very open and honest about what sex is, what the purpose of sex is, as early as possible, because now it's not just like an ignorance problem where I think before people kind of like, oh, it might be too early and I don't want to like shatter childhood innocence, which is a noble thing to do. But there's clearly people that feel so strongly about telling a distorted version of what sex and sexuality is, or even what the human person is, at a elementary school age level in public libraries, or at taking kids to drag shows that are quote unquote family friendly. And the amount of damage, it's kind of funny, I think about too. I remember a time when everyone said, oh, well, people are just born this way. Early days of like the fight against gay stuff was like, people are born this way and you should respect them. I honestly have not heard someone say that phrase in a long time, probably since the Lady Gaga song, because so obviously this is a recruitment thing now. I don't even know if people would even argue that anymore. It's like, well, you can be whoever you want, and I'm going to expose you to this, and it might make you happy. So now you can change your sex. Now you can be a drag queen. Yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even about that anymore. It's clearly a recruitment thing, and it just makes it more important, I think, as Catholics who have a robust understanding of the human anthropology, have a robust catalog of resources as well. Think Theology of the Body, so many great encyclicals. I have a phenomenal pastor who is big on this. You need to be talking to your kids as early as possible about this. Remove tattoos, or not tattoos, don't do that either. Taboos, and just because there's people that will do it for you in the wrong way.
Right.
And I think too, we have to, oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think we have to get away from this. A lot of us grew up with this idea that there was the talk, right? Like the sex talk. And somehow leading up to this talk that you're going to have when, I don't know, your daughter's like 12 or 13 years old, whenever she's starting to, like, her body's changing, you're going to have the talk. That there's this moment like before where there's no knowledge of sex, and there's this moment afterwards where like suddenly you know everything and you're kind of like traumatized. I think that as Catholics, we really have to get away from that very, Calvinist Protestant construction, and have just like you said, Tom, a more openness in an age appropriate way, as even in the younger years, to the way your body works, the way where babies come from, and all that. And again, like, there can be a discussion about how to articulate that. So, I have a 7-year-old who wants to know where the baby came from. Well, I'm not going to like go into graphic detail, but being like, well, there's a mom and a dad, and they live together and they love each other, and having different ways to introduce that. We raise rabbits. It helps a lot with the talk, right? Because you like have animals around who are reproducing, and kids just kind of see how that works. And you don't have to be like explicit that like that's also how people do it until they're older. But just, again, it's not this idea that they have no knowledge of sex. It's like Victorian purity until this day when mom sits you down. But again, like you said, we have to be aware that if we aren't talking to them about it in a way that invites questions and curiosity in a healthy way, they're going to be forced into it by the culture that we're living in. I mean, we were driving through our beautiful New England, Connecticut town. It basically is like Stars Hollow and Gilmore Girls. We live there. So we drive through it, and the giant Congregational church that's been there since 1832 has a pride flag that goes from the little clock tower all the way to the ground, basically.
Conquered.
And my son, who's 11, I've told him that all the rainbow flags that suddenly appeared in Cheshire, Connecticut are part of a religion that we don't belong to, and it's dangerous. And he's like,
the global homo empire.
He looks at the church and he's like, Mom, what kind of Christians are those? Like, he's like, why is the
bad ones?
Yeah. So don't
wait.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
I just think this is hilarious. So we learned a little bit more about all of us in the process of hosting this show. Yeah. And we know now that the Aherns not only have a lot of children, but they raise rabbits too. So I really think
trying to do what Pope Francis
he is out to get you. Let me tell you what.
We are reproducing like rabbits. Yep. In fact,
I want to piggyback on what both of you have said. I think both. I totally agree with this, because I feel like I know a lot of families who, and they actually would do homeschooling. This is not a knock on homeschooling. I'm not trying to knock them. But they had that same impulse to try to protect their children, as if like inoculate, just keep them completely vacuum sealed away from this culture, which is just depraved and nasty and gross. And so I understand that impulse, but I sort of feel like if you keep them hermetically sealed, vacuum sealed, and then all of a sudden they're 18 and you just throw them into the world where all these wolves are, I think they're not well prepared. And so I do believe not just having a talk, but like, I think part of it is to eliminate that fear and trepidation that you have in your heart. Like, I'm so worried that this nasty world, which is very gross, mm-hmm. and just dripping in sex depravity. I get it, but you have to have, I like to call it Midwest self-confidence. I am confident in my ability to talk to my children about this in such a way that they will know that they can handle this society at large. Not that they're going to take it all on by themselves, but you have that talk, and you talk about things, and you use opportunities, and age appropriate, of course, but you tell them and you just kind of introduce these ideas. And then you also say, but the society, and I'd say it right then with them, well, here, God has a plan for man and woman, and this is a little bit this, age appropriate, of course. But then I also tell them, and society out there has a different story. They're crazy. They think, X is Y, and, A is B, and you can do whatever you want to. And like, there's a reason that's not true. And I can go into more detail if you need to someday. And always to tell my wife and I would tell our boys and girls, like, if you have any questions on any of this stuff and you feel nervous or ashamed or scared, all I ask is this: don't ask Google. ask mom or dad. And
Yes.
and we have our neighbors. They're very good, holy Catholics as well. I said, I tell my boys, you have a question, you can ask Dad or you can ask Andy. Because I know, I'm too embarrassed to ask Dad. He is someone I would trust my children's lives with. If Lori and I were in a car accident, but Andy and Katie would raise our children, okay? So I trust them implicitly. And I said, you have a question, ask Mom or ask Katie. It's like having that bond of trust. Just don't ask my mother, for the love of God. I love you, Mom, but I'm not letting you talk to my kids about sex at all.
We got a couple of those too. Yeah.
Don't ask Nana. Just do not
draw
ask
the line.
Nana.
Yeah. Well, yeah, great discussion. Looks like you're going to get a little bonus loopcast here that I could have talked about that the whole episode probably. There's tons there. But we got a little Twilight Zone action now. So Josh, you're up first.
I mean, this is so funny. Like this video this lady put out there, and it's meant to be like a parody of Harrison Bucker. Can we roll this tape at all?
Stayed off by just laying it out there that what I'm looking for in a man is someone who's going to stay home and farm to provide the essential needs for our family. I work a ton, so what I need is someone who's going to stay home and be growing food and raising livestock for our family. I do not trust the food that other people make. I would never feed my children food that has like chemicals and pesticides and hormones that other people put in the food. So I'm going to need a man to quit his job and just stay home and like hunt for wild meat and grow harvesting shit and take heads off chickens and carry hay and stuff like that. You would be lucky to have the privilege to stay home while I went out and made all the money, and all you had to do was like exactly what you were biologically made for, which is like hoeing and waking up at dawn to get the vegetable. Biologically, you were made to hunt for meat and spread seeds and harvest shit. I'm not understanding, but you're upset. I'm telling you that I fully support you.
We can cut her off
and literally
now.
all you have to do is...
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, obviously she's making this as a rejoinder, as a satire against Harrison Bucker, okay? And her voice is kind of nauseating, but honestly, she's a pretty lady, and if this pretty lady came up to a bunch of men in their 20s and be like, hey, I'll keep working if you want to raise a farm. They'd be like, yeah, sounds good.
Sure. Your terms are acceptable.
I'll wake up at 6 and milk the cow and take care of the chickens.
Doesn't everyone want?
Why is this an own? Like,
everyone wants a jacked hunter-gatherer farming husband. That's the dream. If I could drop it and go do that now, I would. That'd be sick.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good to me.
And it was the Twilight Zone. That's the worst bleep job I've ever heard in my life. Like they still went through and bleeped it, but the bleep covered nothing. And then they just dropped it hard. And then I actually had someone email us about, I guess they do transcripts on Apple Podcasts, that I didn't even know about. But in the transcript, it has me dropping an F-bomb after Josh said that DC is just ugly Hollywood. And I had to go back myself. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I didn't drop an F-bomb there, and I didn't.
I've never heard you drop an F-bomb.
But the transcript was pretty hilarious. Like going back, I was like, that was a pretty funny line by Josh. And then they're like, it's okay, I don't want to scandalize people. I was like, I think we'll be okay. I appreciate the sentiment, protecting the brand, but
yeah, I mean, you're much better at not swearing than I am. And sorry about the clip. I should have given you guys a warning. I'm a son of a sailor, folks. I beg your forgiveness, but I would say this. I mean, this whole thing, I mean, it's like a satire. Like, who want, stay at home? She's making fun of Harrison Bucker for wanting stay at home, women, stay at home wives. And she's like, well, why don't you be a stay at home farmer? It's like, that kind of sounds awesome. Kind of
sounds awesome. I'm telling you, everyone's looking for a jacked hunter gatherer that's unvaccinated and grows their own meat. It's kind of the dream. Erica.
Sounds like a new reality show we should do.
Actually, it is.
We could
Did
do
you see
that.
there is? Actually, it's it's not called Farmer Meat or something like that, but there is basically a version of The Bachelor where very city women go and date these like very good looking like farmer dudes. I'm not even kidding. It is a recent show. Right, they basically did it. Yeah. Okay, cool. You're right. Yeah. It's like sick. All right, Erica, you're
This is great. This is great. All right. So today I'm going to go happy. This is the feast of Saint Boniface, who's one of my favorites. And I've decided Saint Boniface is the patron saint of Hide the Pride. So I'm just going to share the story, right? So Saint Boniface, he was this dude he's from England, Saxon England. And his parents had actually fled from Germany to England. He's born in England, and he goes back to Germany, which is in the thrall of all of these pagan cults and etc. And he's evangelizing. He knows he's probably going to be martyred. And he shows up at the tree of Thor, Thor's oak, probably in modern day Hesse, or Hesse, where the Hessians came from. So he shows up at the oak, and under this oak, the pagans had been sacrificing. Yes, there's a lamb in the picture there, but there was also human child sacrifice going on under this tree. And Boniface comes down and he gets an axe and he strikes this blow to the tree. And there's one strike to the tree. This huge boom comes down from heaven, according to the eyewitnesses who tell this is oral tradition now, comes down and splits the oak in half, and it crashes to the ground. And Boniface takes the timber and builds a Catholic church out of the timbers that will honor our Lord. So for anyone out there who's like, I don't know about Hide the Pride, and taking down library books, that seems a little, disrespectful, or no, I just want to be, no, go to St. Boniface. He's like, no, chop down the Pride books. I'm here. I'm waiting for you. So if you're nervous about participating in Hide the Pride, say a prayer to St. Boniface to give you courage to take down Thor's oak from your local library. That's all.
And we're not saying take an axe to the library building.
No, we're not. No violence. Don't get me wrong. I did not just incite like violence to the library.
It is kind of hilarious though, like how scared people are of things that should not scare you at all, and like what people, the standard for most of human history was much more extreme. Like I'm scared to check a book out of the library because someone might think I don't like the rainbow or something. It can
make a difference though, because here's the thing. I just got my thing in the mail, my local library thing in the mail, right? And I looked through all the pages, nothing on Pride, no photos of anything. The worst that they could kind of put out is that at the bottom of one of the pages, there's a thing about sewing, and they lined up the different thread colors, so it was kind of rainbowy. That was like the only thing they like could even
code it now.
But but the library has pledged to they're going to be neutral, and they begrudgingly decided to be neutral, and they weren't going to promote any Pride events. So hey, it can make a difference, guys. Get out there and confront your librarians and say, we'd like you not to have sodomy books for kids. Thank you.
That'd be chill. Okay, I got another uplifting one here. Great story. So the police have kind of been under fire. It's a very understated
no pun intended. Yeah,
putting it that way. Especially after the Scotty Scheffler arrest. I don't know if you guys saw the footage on that, but horrific. I cannot believe they ever put this guy in jail. It was so bad. And I was talking to I have someone in the family who longtime cop, retired after 30 years, and we're just talking about how it's frustrating because there are bad cops, there's good cops. It happens in every industry, but the bad often gets emphasized more than the good. And I think whenever I see these positive stories about an interaction with police, I like to share them because policemen can be amazing community members and servants to people. And I think having that positive relationship, encouraging the good ones, and of course rooting out the bad ones, it can completely change a society. I mean, you look at places that are safe versus places that are dangerous. Typically, the constant is that either there's a good relationship with the local police or a bad relationship with the local police. So here's a cool story. It's from this man, Levante Bell. He was driving with his daughter, and he was driving and got pulled over for a window tint. And so he got pulled over, and then he got asked by the cop why he didn't have a car seat for his daughter. Said his daughter wasn't in a car seat. He asked, and he said, I've been through a lot this year and barely making it because these garnishments, and I don't really like asking people for things. So he couldn't afford it. He said he didn't like asking for it. So he said and they mentioned the race. Do you know this white police officer told me to follow him to Walmart on Ford Road, and he purchased my daughter a car seat with his own money. If you would have seen us in Walmart, you would have thought we were best friends. It was like night and day. Sorry, there's a little bit tough to read at times.
Some salty language.
Some salty language. Walking side by side with a white police officer in Westland. At that, I've been calling all day trying to get his name because I was so in shock. I didn't even look at his name tag. Never judge a book by its cover. There's definitely good guys left. I told him I never met an officer like you. He said, I'm just doing my job. What good would giving you a ticket do besides putting you further in the hole and making it harder on you to come up? And so the Westward Police Department posted shortly after. The Westland, they changed the text a lot. The Westland Police Department would like to express how proud we are of the officer responsible, Officer Joshua Scaglione. We would also like to thank the driver, Levante Dell, for coming forward and sharing his experience with us. In a world filled with negative stories, the fact that you shared yours has had an unbelievably positive impact on all of us. Thank you. So, and then they have a nice picture of them with the daughter. Oh. Sounds so adorable. And yeah, just like a great example of serving the community, being a good guy, going the extra mile. So I just thought I'd share that one to bring us up a little bit.
That makes me so happy. Oh, great way to go.
And that's what we got today. Today was we packed in a lot in this episode. I'm kind of impressed with us. There's a lot to go over today. Sometimes with the hearing stuff, it really goes into
the job.
News, but great job, guys. If you want to also, tell us we did a good job, you can leave a review, Apple Podcast, Spotify. You can give us a like on this episode, subscribe on YouTube, helps a ton. If you want to email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. I've gotten some really nice ones recently. I've gotten some really mean ones. But the nice ones help us out a ton and, very encouraging. So I appreciate the guys who emailed in. There's this guy, Addison. Shout out Addison. He sent me the nicest email. Josh is pointing at the book. Okay, get the book, of course. But shout out to my boy Addison, 26-year-old in the medical profession. I think he's still in med school. And he said he'd been listening for like over a year, but wanted to say that he didn't have a favorite, but if he did, Tom, you're the man. So
Tom gets his first super fan.
I had the first person say I'm doing a good job after years of getting Erica love and Josh love. I'm like, I have been on every episode of this podcast. So, Addison, appreciate it, man. If you guys have questions for us for the Ask Josh
Think about
segment,
that.
Yeah.
I was able to boost your confidence by slipping that guy $20 just to say that.
Oh, man.
Dang.
Come on, Josh.
Come on, Josh. You gotta let me.
Sorry, busy
throw the man a
bone.
Yeah, he's busy reading.
Unbelievable.
Go grab the book. We appreciate all you guys. But as always, especially at the Pride Month, I want to keep reminding people too, we need to be praying for everyone swept up in the rainbow nonsense. There's so many people that are lost, misguided, have been swept up. And so pray for them, ask for reparations for them, fast for them. This is just I think June, of course, being a month dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus is a good time to do that. So just a reminder, I'll be doing that with you guys. If you want to help the program the most, pray for us. Josh?
Just don't fast this Friday. Eat meat on Friday because we got the Feast of the Sacred Heart. Such a great feast. But then after that, after that.
Okay. We're throwing a rager on Friday.
Roger that.
But St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe, pray for us. Appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.